everyone. We are here at Georgia Power, as you can see behind us from the building. We're going to take you through their hives and also talk a lot about honey.
So today's episode is all about honey, that extra sweet stuff that the bees produce for us, and we can't wait for you to try it.
My favorite honey is orange blossom.
My favorite honey is ling honey.
I love sourwood. My favorite honey is clary sage.
Mine is lavender.
I'm Nicholas. I'm the lead beekeeper for Bee Downtown in Atlanta, so I take care of all the beehives around town. I'm also an internationally certified honey judge, well certified, and part of what we do is tasting honey, looking at all the qualities of it, how clean it is and stuff. So no one's tasted, this is a frame of the Georgia Power honey for 2020 that no one's tried yet because it's still in the hives and hopefully maybe still being made if we get a little more nectar this year, but they've already made a bunch. So we're gonna taste this and I'm gonna give you a flavor profile, which is basically just me telling you what it tastes like. I'm gonna go ahead and taste it with the wax. So that honey is very smooth. It's a multi-floral honey, which means it comes from a lot of different plants. It's not just one tree, it's wildflower. So around here we're gonna have blackberry, poplar, privet, a whole lot of different things that have gone into this honey. People like the wildflower, the non-monofloral honeys, because they're good for allergies because they've got that diversity of nectar in it.
So everybody, this is Jonathan. He's our new intern for the summer, and he's going to be the second person ever to get to taste the honey. He's a student at Georgia Tech.
Go Yellow Jackets.
Go Yellow Jackets and honeybees. And he is also a beekeeper.
Hey bee lovers, let's give this a taste right here. Interesting. I like it. I like it a lot. Really sweet. Ever so slightly tangy. Trying to think of
You need a tasting wheel.
yeah, I need a tasting wheel because it definitely is a multifloral honey. Like, it has some subtler notes. It's a really good honey. Like, I'm almost getting a honeysuckly taste too. Like, it's a very good honey.
So we're about to check this beehive. It's been here for about 2 years now. It's due for its second honey harvest. We'll use the smoker. I've already got it lit up, and we're going to use it to kind of calm the bees down before we go in. So I'll give it a few puffs of smoke and let that kind of travel up through the hive. Give it a second. It's kind of a tall hive. So we'll go ahead and open it. This is called the telescoping cover. It telescopes up and down like this and works in conjunction with the inner cover. That's this cover here. It has a hole in the center, and the bees when you telescope it up, the bees can fan and move air out. They keep their nest when they have brood, which is the baby bees. They keep it right around 95 degrees year long. So in the summer when it's hot, they'll actually spit water out and use evaporative cooling to push that water out through the hive to keep it cool. And then in the winter time, they'll get in a tight cluster and vibrate their flight muscles to generate heat. So go ahead and open this up.
Hey Nick, can I ask why you, whose hive tool you're using?
This is Scotty's.
Mine.
You can tell by the pink.
Yes. I love it.
It's a good hive tool.
That was
It is.
Scotty's welcome present when she joined the team 3 years ago.
It was.
Yes. And where did you learn about the pink hive tool?
Oh, I learned from Nick,
Yeah.
so I had to buy Scotty a pink one.
I was
course.
going for some bonus points early on. I can use as many as I can get.
Nice.
So this super actually has some sugar water and medication in it, so we're going to go ahead and move it off. The super is the box. It contains it's called a super because it contains the surplus or extra honey. And then these bigger boxes down here, those are brood chambers because those have the babies, the brood. Also contains some honey down there as well. We've already pulled one frame out because we were doing some filming with it earlier, but these are called frames.
So all of this honey here, how is it made? Can you walk me through the process of?
Sure. So what the bees do is they go out and they collect nectar. And when they get that nectar, they bring it back to the hive. And usually there's another bee that helps them offload it for efficiency at the entrance. And they bring that back and they regurgitate it into these cells where it mixes with enzymes from their gut that invert some of the sugars. And then they fan warm air over it to dehydrate it and get the moisture out. If they don't get that moisture out, it would ferment and go bad.
So that's really interesting.
So I just pulled this from the very first super that Nick pulled off, and it's because he said, like he mentioned, he's got a little bit of leftover sugar water from the winter, which he's clearly marked on his frame. And you can see we've dyed it green, so that's why there's some hint of color. But then you can see that the girls have backfilled with some later in the spring darker nectar. Usually sumac starts blooming here in Georgia, and we get a lot darker of a colored honey. And the bees don't actually flavor the honey at all. They just work nectar sources. They're really good at working one source at a time until it's completely finished, and then they move on. So you'll see from frame to frame, even a few days in between, that they've worked one nectar source and then moved to another one. And you can see the organization inside the hive. And if they start running out of room below, they'll actually carry honey further up into the hive for better storage. So Nick went and added a super, but he brought it to the lowest destination since they were already capping honey.
Got
and you'll be able
it.
to see.
So this is what it looks like when we put it on here. It's got this, we call this foundation, and we just put that on because to get the honey out, we basically put it in a giant centrifuge that spins it. And without the center part, the bees would do it all on their own. It'd just be wax instead of plastic, but it would shatter.
Got it.
And that way we can reuse the wax every year.
Nice.
It makes
And they'll make
beekeeping
more
more
honey.
sustainable.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you can see here we have honey. This is capped honey that's ready to go. Then here where it doesn't have the wax, they put a wax cap on it when it's ripe. We have nectar that they're turning into honey and ripening right there. And then we have pollen inside of that. And then we have here the brood. This is the baby bees.
Nice.
We've got a few drones here on the frame. So there's one.
This boy bee. Cute.
Boy bees do not have stingers.
Nope.
They're incapable of stinging.
No stingers.
They poop a lot. They eat a lot.
Those fat, lazy boys. Not like our boys on our team, are they?
All right, Lee Catherine, so we see a lot of honey and we've talked a lot about honey. How many flight miles do you think it takes, if you had to guess, for the bees to make 1 pound?
So one honeybee by herself makes 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey in her whole life. Bees will fly around 3 miles or more in search of food. So to produce 1 pound of honey, we have calculated that it's about 55,000 flight miles collectively. That's 2 circumferences of the earth to produce all of that liquid gold we all love so much.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Hey, wow. Okay. Pam just said that was really heavy.
Yeah, it's a solid 7-8 pounds of honey.
8 pounds. Oh my gosh, it's like bulging, as you can tell from the bottom.
So
Pretty awesome.
when the girls build out honeycomb, if you give them too much space, they'll draw the honeycomb out. And you can see the wave between where these were touching.
Oh yeah. So you can see there's that, indent. Here, that is the bulge. So it's pretty cool. And so Pam, I have a question for you, since we've been talking so much about honey as well. Where do you get it? Real, local, raw honey. Where do you
My suggestion is to wander down and find the end cap at a grocery store, and you will find a local producer that has set up shop. In the South, we are blessed with fantastic partnerships, so you can buy local honey from a farmer in most of your grocery stores, but I always challenge you to visit the farmer's market when you can and buy straight from the producer.
Nice. And we're selling honey for the time being. So
Yep.
if you have the ability,
Be downtown.
check out our website.
/shop.
So we just pulled these 2 frames and they're pretty different. This one's a lot lighter, as you can tell. And then this one is a lot darker. So, Nick, why is that?
Well, it's probably 2 different types of honey. They both could be wildflower. They're going to have a different mix of nectar sources. This honey was probably produced early in the spring, and so the things that bloom in the spring versus later in the year in the fall are very different. And usually the fall tends to be darker and spring tends to be lighter.
All right, so Jonathan, quiz question, since you're the new intern. Who gets all of the Georgia Power honey?
Georgia Power, right?
You are right. Yes, they can do whatever they want with it. They can give it to their employees. Sometimes they've gifted it. So it really just depends on what they want to use it for. So a lot of people ask us, since the honey is the bees' food, does it harm them when we take away the honey? So those top 2 boxes, we'll take those away and harvest those. But does that harm the bees in any way or hurt them?
No, so honeybees produce a surplus of honey. Other bees actually produce, like bumblebees produce honey, but they don't produce enough for us to take. They don't produce surplus. So they'll be fine because we'll only take the extra that they produce.
We are doing our final inspection this week, and then next week we'll be pulling supers off these hives so that we can go ahead and get ready for harvesting. These bees will also then go into a summer dearth, which means there's really nothing much blooming. Clover is still blooming, but overall it's about the end of the season for honey harvesting. So we just inspected these hives at Georgia Power. Next week will be all about pulling these supers off the hive because we're ready to harvest, and we don't want the bees to eat all of this sweet goodness that they've left over for us. So thanks for joining us here at Georgia Power. It's been a good day.
Thanks everyone for following along on the Georgia Power Honey Tour. We'll see you soon.